In fact, I'm frequently overwhelmed by the enormity of the task in front of anyone who wants to transform the structures of society in the direction of a more just and equitable world. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, climate change, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, genocide, war, destruction. It feels like it's coming in on all sides sometimes, right? Inequality that would make robber barons blush, saddled with soul-crushing debt and low wages and no or poor health care and no social safety net and no hope for relief on the horizon. I'm watching many of my generation and those following behind become nihilists, specifically about the possibility that anything can get better, right? That anything can change. The world we've inherited feels destined to get worse, in fact. The American political system often seems utterly incapable of offering any serious solutions to our most pressing problems. In this world, what can we do to move toward the good? I'm kind of at a loss sometimes about this question, right? In this world specifically, to our topic today, or one of the topics for discussion, can the arts, say videography, or as you say, creative nonfiction, be anything more than a pleasant reprieve from a world on fire, right? I find myself often turning to arts as the escape from the burning world around me. Or do the arts still have the potential as a tool for revolutionary change? I hope that is probably enough.
Small questions to start the day. That was great. Hope.
Okay. Be confused. Right? The humans, the sentient beings, not just humans, the sentient beings that I'm most compassionate for right now are the ones who are flatlining, for whom this is just another day in the life of this world, whereas those of us who feel like, I'm going to swear in a church, the shit is just going fucking bonkers. That is a very sane, healthy, thoughtful, kind, compassionate response to fire, to chaos, to abuse of power. And so let the confusion be like a scent. I often use this image, especially with younger people in my life, mentees, students, and they're like, I don't know what to do next, and I don't know where to go, and and I don't know how to be, and I don't, like, okay, take 3 months and notice when your body, I was a modern dancer for many years before I ever made any films, notice when your body animates. And it doesn't have to be a positive situation. You can also be really fucking pissed off about something. But your body, like your eyes light up, your body animates. And it's that little idea that keeps tapping you on the shoulder. And eventually, if you brush it away many, 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 many times, it might just slink away. So our job is to, like, if I were to give you an assignment, it would be 3 months and notice every time you light up. Physically, emotionally, intellectually. And again, it's the full range of emotions. It doesn't have to be a positive one. It doesn't have to be something good, necessarily. I use go toward the good because what, to me, happens when you start to note what's happening in your body and your nervous system and the responses that you're having, if you do it for long enough, you'll see a pattern. And that pattern just might blow your mind. It really just might be the thing you're like, wow, I really love pies. I mean, it really just might surprise you. Or it might be the thing that you're already devoting your days, your nights, your energy to anyway. Either way, it's very interesting. So I offer that. And then the other one is this sort of, this cartoon image that I use all the time in my life. I'm sort of a trail finder. I like to, especially in nature, I like to kind of, like, where have the animals, what's the path the animals are using? What is nature telling us in terms of systems and what works and doesn't work? And there's this cartoon image that I'm pretty sure most humans on the planet have seen, which is essentially the smell of a pie. Wow, it's coming back to pie. A freshly baked pie on a windowsill. And it's out of view, but the aroma is coming around the corner. And you pick it up and you're like, and you just follow it like a cartoon character, and you go somewhere that you never thought you. So follow your nose. Going toward the good for me, my name's Hope, I can't help it, I'm pathologically optimistic. I've tried. I'm full existentialist crisis. And it's very satisfying, but it is not in my nature. So I feel like good means something broader than positive. Good means, again, what animates you? The people you spend your time alongside. And now, to your point, just to come back around to the initial question that you posited, Polly, and then to yours, but with the influx of and the incoming being so at times staticky, right? The more you can kind of calm your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, and listen for and smell what draws you, what lights up your eyes. It has a clarifying effect. And it allows you to kind of let the incoming wash by you rather than feel like everything needs to be attended to, because it can't be. I mean, unless you're superhuman. Maybe there's a superhero among us. So yeah, that's kind of the way that going toward the good just has a happy feeling for me. Whatever it is that your shorthand is for that, I think that allows us to feel like we're in terms of the reweaving, that there are these stress parts of our life. The fabric that's holding us up is stressed in lots of different places. So how do you have the energy and thoughtfulness not just to reweave it the way it was, but to put some shimmer in there? If you're darning a sock, why not do like cool new yarn, right? And make it, what's the Japanese concept, kintsugi. Have you ever heard about this, where if there's a cracked piece of pottery or that basically you line it with beeswax and then gold leaf and then burn it, and that fissure then becomes stronger than it ever was, and it's so much more interesting to look at than just the completed original thing. Or not more interesting, just it has a life. It's like scars. So.
Isaac, did we get close? And yes, just so you're aware on the stream, we're joined by a couple of birds upstairs. I promise that this is not like a very late Mardi Gras celebration. Dorian.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that share. That was really capacious, as we like to say here at Union. And thank you for the question. I'm wondering if you could speak to the process of creating this offering here, particularly because, one, I feel like there's so much pressure to be one-dimensional, right? Are you a videographer? Are you a photographer? Or are you, right, in these ways that don't always honor all of our other dimensions? And so I just love that this is a part of your practice, and it's an offering to the world because it really honors the complexity of who we are and what our manifestation in the world looks like. But I'm wondering if you could speak to, I imagine that when the idea of this came, this may have been journal entries that you were writing or things in your phone and your notes section that were coming to you. And then you had the idea to make it public. What's the process of making something that has an internal deposit and that feels very personal, very public as an offering to the world? And if you could just talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been kind of walking around, with little notebooks in my pocket since I was a little kid. And, these kind of prompts and hints and things that I want to follow up on, or, and then I got some of the craziest, or I was living in some of the craziest schedule life situation possible, working 18-hour days, 8 years in a row, not knowing, having 5 phones logged into the official account of one Barack Hussein Obama. If I mess up with my butt, that's front page of the New York Times, and I get fired, and I ruin the presidency. So, no pressure. So I literally I started compiling all this stuff so that when I'm faced with the static, and sometimes the static isn't just 2-dimensional, it's like 4-dimensional, it's a way of calming my nervous system. And I offer them, they're all sort of pointing to the same feeling, but they're a different approach depending on the situation. And the different approaches really helped me find it when I couldn't find it. You know what I mean? And this is something we've talked about in many different ways and over time, but that storytelling thing of when you concretize, you stiffen, right? But if you're cubist, if you're multidimensional, you have many different approaches to the same, what can feel like you're hitting the wall the same way over and over. But if you have lots of different approaches, then all of a sudden, the stone breaks open. But it takes 1,000 different kinds of taps with, of a very patient person to, but it's only on that 1,000th tap. So you kind of have to try it from so many different angles. And so I went on a speaking tour to give myself a sabbatical. I needed to rest after living the way I had and working the way I had been doing for 2 terms in the White House. And
you needed to rest?
Can you believe it? And so I wasn't part of an institution that would grant me a sabbatical, so I made one for myself. And I had always loved teaching and lecturing, and so whenever I had any incoming while I was at the White House, I would say, I'm a terrible invite, because I might have to cancel 5 minutes before, and you're paying for the flight, and it's like, who wants? But count me in for January or after January 2017. So I kind of built up this speaking tour, and about half of the way through, I was like, oh, I've always loved writing poetry and broadsheets and making visual art. Film is visual art, but I also just like making things, actual things. And so I've always loved the broadsheet, the 1 page. And so what I did was, originally a friend who makes paper made the paper for me, and we put it all on 1 sheet, and then I sign each one, and with my Reiki powers.
You told me the first time that you gave one to me, this is now my 3rd, you specifically, and for all of the seminary folks, you call it blessing each one. Yes. I kind of love that.
Yes, I do.
We have one last question. We time for one last official question.
I tend to do this. I tend to talk a lot. I apologize. Please know, you can write me on my contact form on my website from now deep into the future, and we can talk things through, and I can listen more. So I apologize for talking so much.
That was great. Also, thank you for not canceling 5 minutes before today. Thank you to Michael Soares, who has given us a 3-part question in the chat. I guess some people know that Michael is a three-part question asker. He says, I, for one, was really impressed with the level of video transparency available during the Obama administration. Has that continued? That's question number one. Feel free and field as many or as few of these as you feel comfortable. Number two, has the TikTok platform changed the field of videography, and is it useful compared to the types of content you've produced? Number three, do you have any comment on how the Palestinian genocide got to be so widely videoed as opposed to the thousands, if not millions, of other people around the world? What do you think was the spark in that arena?
Yeah, so the first question, definitely, so I was part of the new media team. Actually, I was cinematographer for a documentary about Obama starting in 2006. I'm gonna talk really fast because we don't have much time. It was gonna be a 6-year documentary in case he ran in 2012. So I'd been around, and then he asked me to, when he became the actual candidate, there were only 4 months left in the campaign, and he was never gonna win. If he was sitting right here, I'm not like speaking out of turn, he would agree. He's like, yeah, I was never gonna win, but we had to try. So we had 4 months, and he was like, can you leave the doc and come on as staff for my new media team? And I was like, no, I work in nuance and complexity. I don't make propaganda. And he was like, thank you, that's exactly why I need you. And I was like, oh. So that was sort of the heart and soul of what started as new media and then became the digital strategy team. And so, yes, it was very much part of his and the team's plan was to create this whole new team, whole new department. He was the first president to have a videographer in addition to still photographers. Yes, and that changed very much in the last presidency. So lack of transparency was really an important and opposite approach
for them
to presidency and to the executive branch. And then when I went back and advised Biden and worked with the Biden-Harris team, it was really about rebuilding what had taken us 8 years to build out. The second question.
Yes. Has the TikTok platform changed the field of videography? Is it useful? I
mean, so I used to think of what I did as so obscure. You know, like, oh, I was a modern dancer, and then I was a projection designer, and then I was a, cinematographer for documentaries. Like, no one pays attention to any of those things. Well, it's pretty awesome to be part of a world that everyone's now good at, has an opinion about, can do themselves. I'm like, this is great. Now we're part of, people's daily lives. It does make for some pretty funny conversations, at like holidays with distant fourth uncles, who are like, oh, I made this thing, I wanted to show you. Like, okay, everyone's a filmmaker now. Cool. So I'm all for that. I'm totally for that. I think that it's, and I love short form. I think for that reason, I'm a big fan, but I'm not super active on TikTok. I sort of leave it for the people who have the energy for that.
I wish I had the energy for that.
Okay,
the last
third
one.
Question. Oh, the genocide.
Any comment about Palestine?
Yes. Well, again, I think, I consider myself in some situations as a human shield, because when you have a camera and a microphone, so it's not just stills, when you're actually documenting what is happening, and this actually goes back to question 2 about TikTok, it's a really, to say it's a powerful medium is a total understatement. I mean, it changes the course of history. So I don't know how to, I'm not sure that I necessarily know enough to know about the measurement of more or less in terms of, what is being documented around the world in terms of violence and aggression. I do feel like more cameras are better than less, but it's but it also changes everything when a camera's there. And so I often say the camera and I are collaborators in a situation, and no matter what, people's behavior changes. And so the way I see the potential is that, you know, the more we are in relationship to what is happening in a room, and the more we are, you know, softening and playing and listening rather than trying to make it a commercial transaction somehow, like get something, then we're actually learning and growing alongside other people and using this technology, which really can change the course of history. And I hope it does, especially for those who are suffering so needlessly.
We'll have to leave it there for now. But I'm so grateful that you were able to make time and to linger with us. Those of you who are here in the room will linger a little bit more and have some coffee and a snack. For those of you who are on the Watch platform, thank you so much for your questions, and the feedback and the playback will always be available. Tomorrow during chapel, that's happening only via web conference, and so you can check out the email from Dean Montez about that, but that's being led by Dr. Lillis's class of Mary in the First Millennium, and the link is in the email that you received earlier this morning. And without further ado, my friends, go in peace.